Okay. Now, let's try to do this with audio through the entire time. At least, hopefully. Let's make sure we're getting audio now. Yes. All right, cool. So starting off, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is what should have been the 12/6/19 edition of the episode. Man, super tired. But here we go. Watch this. Okay, maybe a little much, but anyway, it's fun. Why not have fun? Um, I originally was going to post this yesterday, and it was something I read the day before, so I'm catching up. Last night's dialysis session took a little bit more out of me than I was expecting. I was just super tired by the time it was all over, and just really not up for anything. And plus, I was in my car at the time. I was like, I'll just wait till I can get back up to the computer and be a little bit easier. Plus, I get to do fancy stuff. Anyway, this all comes from, let's see, there's a button here. Whoa. A tweet I read a couple days ago now. A guy named Octo on Twitter. There we go. He found out I got taken off audition list for voice acting because I'm a YouTuber, and that really sucked. I started my YouTube channel as a creative outlet because I didn't want any other way at the time to work on voice projects, and now I'm being punished for it. He goes on to talk about how it really hurts and being considered not really a voice actor because of their choice to pursue individual creative projects. And he gets it. You have a group of actors you're working with and who do a good job and you continue to work with them. It's totally understandable. And he did the same thing. But he goes on to say, but to deny someone the chance to even try for a part because of how they cut their teeth just feels unfair. He would go on, keep talking about how, so I think a bit of explanation is in order for the curious. I was told by the producer of a project that myself and a number of other YouTuber creators were submitted to an audition for voiceover roles or voice acting roles. The director saw the list and said they prefer to use real voice actors. They were pitched as being competent and having a built-in audience who would be interested in the project, but none of them were given a chance. They were all just tossed aside for whatever reason. And he has said it's before that, but it's just not even get the chance to audition feels just unfair. And I thought about that, and it's a lot of life starting off. I mean, I think there's kind of the old world mentality of how things are done, and then there's kind of the new world mentality of how things are being done. I mean, things, especially with the invention of YouTube, lots of stuff is starting on YouTube. People are kind of getting their start there and being able to kind of build their own portfolio of stuff, their own kind of thing to kind of show what they're capable of. But then to kind of just be passed over still as not being seen as a viable talent because you're not professional or you're not, you don't do it for a living. You're not pro, I guess, is what really hurts. And so it made me think about a story about a young man born in Queens who, on paper, let me pull up my notes here. On paper, his first movie that he wrote, directed, and produced. Here's the scenario. Imagine it being, at one point it's 2003. It's 2003. Now you're looking for a director for a film. Now, would you pick this guy? Had a movie in 1996. Budget about $200,000. Grossed about $4.5 million worldwide. It was only really seen in the U.S. About $4.5 million in the U.S. Not bad. Went on to make a second film in 2001 with a budget of about $5 million, but only made about $5.4 million gross. So not all that great. And so you're getting ready to do a film, and it's being pitched to you that this is the guy, this could be the guy for your film. And the person in question is Jon Favreau, the guy from Swingers, essentially at the time, was the big movie he'd had at the time. And he ended up at 2003 going with Elf. And so exactly how did that happen? Well, you look at the everything involved, because he was like, how in the world did that man get the opportunity that he got? Well, as you look at it, when asked, so how did you get to direct Elf? Because then basically he had no real experience in the major mainstream filmmaking, and it was all just kind of indie work. And so he said he'd worked with Judd Apatow, of all things, who had really nothing to do with Elf, but when he directed an episode of Undeclared, and then worked on a pilot that didn't get picked up. But as he was working with him, his manager, who also managed Will Ferrell, of course, sent him a copy of the screenplay to Elf. And he directed and made. That was the second film that barely made more than the budget. And people knew him from Swingers, of course, his first film. And he took a look at the script, wasn't particularly interested, and it was a much darker version of the film. And he felt like the notion of being involved with Will Ferrell, the first film movie in SNL, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't there for him. He was asked to take another look at it, and then while they're looking for somebody to rewrite it, possibly direct it, as I remember reading it, and it clicked. If I made it from the world, as for though he sort of Elf grew up in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with those Rankin and Bass Christmas specials I grew up with, then everything fell into place tonally. So for a year, he rewrote the script, and he turned it into more of a PG film from PG-13. And it was originally a darker character, the script he read originally, and the character became a bit more innocent. The world became a bit more of a pastiche of the Rankin and Bass films. The studio, New Line at the time, read it and agreed to make it, and that's how he was brought in to direct. Now, for those who know and do not know, Jon Favreau went on from Elf in 2003 to do Zathura, the space adventure thing that was pretty much Jumanji in space, in 2005. And then while he was doing work on, of all things, Daredevil with Ben Affleck, we just pretend that never happened, but it's good that it happened for this one reason, because Jon Favreau was in it, met the guy who would eventually be the boss of Marvel Studios, and they brought him in to do, of all things, Iron Man. So he's gone from a $200,000 budget film in Swingers in the beginning to now doing the monster $140 million budget Iron Man. And of course, as you know, he gave us Iron Man 1 and 2, and of course we'd go on to 3, but more importantly, Iron Man would finally cement the whole MCU concept into the cinematic universe. And of course that would go on to be 23 movies in total so far, and of course billions upon billions and billions of dollars in box office. And so that's pretty good. And as if that wasn't enough, Jon Favreau then takes all this, and he's made, of course, The Mandalorian, or as most people like to call it, the Baby Yoda show. But no matter how you refer to it or want to think about it, there's one thing you now get to call it, and that is the top TV show in the world. So, just a quick recap. Jon Favreau started from nothing. Indie films, really. Your YouTube equivalent of back in the day of the film industry. And parlayed it eventually by people giving him a chance, seeing his work, seeing the potential, meeting the man, finding out, and just through that, and now Disney is making just stupid amounts of money off of him. But it's all about taking the chance, and maybe, not necessarily professional, but eventually he worked his way that direction. And now The Mandalorian being the top show in the world is pretty impressive as well. And of course it led to Disney making far more in their launch than they ever thought they would, because honestly not a lot of people are all that interested in just having access to the Netflix of Disney films, because it's just that had an appeal. But then when they started talking about their original content, and not just like straight to video kind of content, but actual original like Star Wars content and that sort of thing, then it got people kind of interested. And then you get Jon Favreau involved with his now pretty good record through his work with the MCU and all that stuff, and it just pretty much just, it's now just amazing to see the evolution of such things. And you can definitely say that it really is about, I think it was best explained by John Cleese in a recent interview, but it's really about persistence. And he said, teach your children to be persistent, not necessarily good, but persistent, because everybody's good, but it's the persistent ones that continue on and get the job done and make the success, because none of it's overnight. It's all definitely a long and arduous process. I'll close out with this quote I also found on Twitter recently from Kurt Angle, where it says, "Embrace who you are, love yourself no matter what, but understand that you can eventually be better than you are right now. Pushing for improvement and being critical of yourself is the best way to improve your life in every capacity. Believe and achieve, and don't ever stop." So there you go. A lot of life is just being persistent. Being good, but also being persistent. And being the one who shows up and the one who does the work. Doesn't necessarily complain about the work, but does the work and gets the work done. And so maybe it's doing YouTube. Maybe it's doing YouTube and just keep doing it until they can't deny that, yes, you've got talent and they'd like to work with you. And if they don't, well, it's their loss. So there. Anyway, that's a real quick catch up on day 6. Is it 6? Hang on. Yes, Daily 7 number 6 is now finally done. I think 7's going to be done tomorrow because it's kind of late tonight for 6. But anyway, hope you're well, and I'll talk to you later.